So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of WealthWise Live. My name is Malachi Battle, and I'm the host for today. Today's topic is the basics of financial growth. And this episode is incredibly important to me because I know personally I've done a lot of thinking about is it even worth trying to do better? And I know other people probably have that same mindset and same questions. And so that's also part of why I feel like today's guest, Javar Duckett, is a great guest. He's a financial advisor, and so he actively helps people do this. And so if you would like to give a little intro about yourself, by
Yeah,
all means, by all means.
for sure. I love that. Thank you, Malachi. I love that. A little bit about myself is, let's see, I was born and raised in Arkansas, but mainly I was really raised in Dallas, Texas, where I went to Lake Highlands High School and graduated from there. And then, moved on into college or university at Texas A&M University. I did that, and I want to backtrack a little bit. Actually, I went to Blaine College, community college, for 2.5 years. Right, so I maxed out my opportunity at college, um, because primarily I was paying for college for myself, and I realized that if we're gonna pay for it, I don't want to be in so much debt that I couldn't bear it. Right, and
Hmm.
so you know when I transitioned into Texas A&M, that really did teach me a lot about leadership and about just following through on even the small things that you do, of course,
Right.
around making, agriculture, communication. So love that. I thought it was going to be a black farmer, to be real with you. I thought for a second, okay, we're going to get some land. We're going to start, getting some crop together, some cattle. And then realized very quickly that this is expensive. You got to have
Yeah.
some capital, you know. And so did that a little bit, and then as well, 2020 had happened, and that's where, which you'll hear sooner in this conversation how I really came into this business.
Yeah. I look forward to hearing about that. Yes, farming is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Way more than one could really imagine. But thank you for that intro. And that kind of just segues us into the first topic, which is just your story. And
Mhm.
I want to ask, why and how did you get into financial advising? So I can definitely see the leadership perspective on that because you're noticing things, you want to do things, but you feel like there are limitations. So, what really kind of shifted you all the way to what you do now?
Yeah, completely. So, you know, I'll be completely honest with you. The numbers don't gear my turns in this business, in some sense. What really got me into this business was 2020. And I say that because 2020 was a year of highlight. I mean, it highlighted everyone, I think. You really got to see, besides the pandemic itself, which was, a complete disaster, it was also people's finances. I was in college at the time, I believe I was a sophomore. And, the way that I paid for college was doing odd jobs. I cut people's grass, Christmas season, I did Christmas lights. I mean, I did anything
Right.
and everything to make sure that I, was trying to get ahead in life and making sure I didn't go too much into debt. And so, from that year, I realized that a lot of these businesses, especially mom and pop places, they had shut down, right? Like some of my favorite restaurants, I don't know about you, but some of my favorite restaurants had completely shut down. And I was like, dang, that's too real. And then even for myself, I realized, wait, if I don't make money this next month, how do I pay rent? Right? Because rent still had to get paid that year, right? That month.
Yeah.
So it was no joke, right? Um, and so that's when I realized, okay, something's just not right because I noticed that some of my friends was not really affected by 2020 or their families weren't. And I go, how do you become recession proof? Like in a sense that, when the ebbs and flows of the market happen, or roller coaster, shall I say, when it's not performing so well for everyone, how do we bounce back from that? Right. And so that's why I did some digging, some praying, especially praying, but then a whole lot of just, absorbing information from the elders that I knew, the individuals that were doing well in life. And so that's really what got me into the business was because I just saw so many struggles, the majority of Americans struggle, and I just knew something just wasn't, right about that. And so it became a mission of mine.
Yeah. So that really, I can see that, on my own personal experience, just growing up in general, just seeing like
Mhm.
family members and certain things people experience. I feel you on that. So that really, COVID was really like a wake up moment for you. Like, man, this is a
Absolutely.
lot harder than I expected to. And then you're young. I know me being, a little younger than you. I just started working, and I'm like, man, I got to keep paying these bills.
Yeah. Yeah. And you
So
got to pay up with Sam. He's the first. That was even the thing too. In 2020, I go, even if I made a check, Uncle Sam's taking his cut first, right?
always, yes,
So yeah,
always.
it could be a struggle if you don't have a plan.
Right. There's so much value in a plan. I know it probably was a bit shocking to see those businesses close down because that's real
Mm,
too,
mhm.
for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Um, so I kind of want to ask. I kind of want to ask, like, so you realize it kind of became a mission for you. What did you start doing? Did you kind of shift what you were learning, or like
Mm,
start building a network to get into what you do
yeah.
today?
Man, I mean, it was a whole lot of learning experiences for me, especially. So I had interned with the company that I'm at now
Mm-hmm.
in 2021, so a year later from 2020. And from there, I found a little bit of success. And when I found a little bit of success, I said, okay, I had sat down with myself. I said, Javar, it seemed like you can help people move to
Mm-hmm.
action, right? Which is really what I do as a financial advisor, is just helping people move the needle, right, in a good amount of time. And so I found myself, early on, once I had graduated into the business, or sorry, graduated from college into the business, I really, if I had to be real with you, I had a poor mentality, right? I had
Mm-hmm.
woke up late, right? I was showing up to the office late. Um, as far as I go, I was eating fried foods, unhealthy, right? So I was giving all myself these ingredients for not setting up myself for success in the finance. Okay. And really, from that standpoint, I just, I caught myself struggling. But then as I had, got called out by some mentors in the business as well as, my mentor in just in general in life, he kind of just told me just the truth, pull my head out of my behind, right? Be more aware. That's all it really is right now, is be more aware. And so from that standpoint, I really said, okay, where can I be successful? How can I do this? So the first things first is that, here at our firm, before you even become a financial advisor or really want to get off into that, they really do ask you to, what's your mission, vision, and why? Because I think a lot of us forget the mission behind all of this. Why do we do the things that we do? And what's the vision? And how are we trying to get ahead into the future? Because I think that's the whole point of the human race, is be able to, leave the place better than we found it, right? So what is your vision? Your vision, if it's, to be able to make sure that your family's taken care of, especially when you're gone, right? I told myself I wanted to make an impact where, not just my children or even my grandchildren knew about me, but my great grandchildren knew about me. I want a whole portrait picture in the house because I want them to know that this was the grandfather that was about business and standing on a mission, right? And so that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question on that one, but that was mine.
Yeah, it does. I
Yeah.
I one of the posts I made a while back was just about how wealth is a mindset. So is poverty. Poverty is also a
Yeah.
mindset, um, and it's one of the things that I myself have had to work on. Like you said, getting up late, not
Yeah.
eating good foods. Um, Something as simple as like reframing your mind to go purchase vegetables can contribute to, just a mindset of wealth. Because I think one of the biggest things coming from the last episode I did was that our guest mentioned she mentioned that wealth is not just money. It's your
Mm-hmm.
expertise, it's your mindset, it's your relationships, it's who you know in that regard. And that kind of brings me to my next question of, so you recognize this issue. COVID was like the big, dang, this is really kind of how it is. And then you get yourself together. You start getting in shape. And so in that process, what are some of the reasons you feel like most people probably feel stuck, or where they feel
Mm.
like they can't get ahead? And now
Okay.
that you where you're at now, what did you change about yourself? What did you
Yeah.
change about your life and the way that you think?
That's a good question. That's a real good question. Um, First things first, the obvious one is I think the age factor, right? I think
Mm.
everyone is at a different age, right? And so when you're younger, you feel like you have a whole lot of time, money. But I think when you're older, you realize you don't have a whole lot of time, and hopefully at that point you do have some money, right? And so I think the first things first thing when people feel like they're stuck is really where they're sitting at in life. Dang, I'm 25 years old, but I want to make sure that I'm married with kids and have a happy family, hopefully by the age of 30. That's just the realness that some of us have. Versus, individuals who are probably sitting in their 40s and 50s, right? Inching to retirement, do have enough money in retirement, right? So, they see what they got in their 401k, they see what they got in their savings, right? Everything that they got in asset value, and they realize, dang, I don't think I have a lot, so I don't know where to go from here, right? So you see a whole lot just from an age range perspective. I think another one is debt. I think that's one of the biggest. That I don't know the statistic on this one, but it might be number one, if not number two, one of the biggest reasons why people are stuck. I think, especially here in America, I realize with my clients, um, who come from a background who are African, they don't really manage debt. They don't use debt for themselves. So, but that seems to be more of a Western thing to do is just manage it. And so the problem that we're running into is that people are stuck because they have these high interest credit cards. We're sitting at 25, 30% with 5,000 on it, and we got multiple of them. Yet we're still paying just the minimum on all of them, right? So that's another way to get stuck. I think the third way, which is to me the most important one that we were talking about throughout this entire conversation, is mindset. I think at the end of the day, we have to see ourselves as getting ready for battle, right? So making sure that mindset wise, yes, you got to eat healthy. Eating healthy helps you have a clear thought process, right? Having brain fogs throughout the day. Mindset in the sense of making sure that, hey, if I really want to tackle this goal of mine, what's the strategy? How can I measure this, right? So having a plan in place really does set you up for success. I think one of the famous quotes is, and I might butcher this, but it says, failing to plan is a failure or a plan to fail,
Right.
right? Or
Yeah.
failing to, and so really make sure that you're mapping out success on paper, right? And so I think a whole lot of it is those things, right?
Right. Yeah. You hit something key.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's no reason to wait.
Mm-hmm.
I think after I finished college, one of the things that I was thinking about on my way to finishing college, and then especially post grad, for like the first few months, was just at this point it's on me. There is no like I
Yeah,
could do horrible in life, and nobody would come fix that for me or save me from that.
absolutely.
Or I could do incredible. I could make it to being the president, and but that's all the way based. It's all based on me at the end of the day, and whether
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to move forward, believe in myself, and set these goals. And I think you spoke to something as far as that strategy. I think a lot of people have goals, but they don't really have a strategy of like how they're going to reach that goal. By 35, I want to be an executive at a tech company, but you
Right.
just go to work every day and go home. Like that's not that's not a plan. That's a dream. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah,
you can make
that's a
that
good way to put it.
dream become reality by saying, okay, I want to be here by 35. Then I'm going to take these steps. I'm going to meet these people. I'm going to develop these relationships. I'm going to make go to these conferences. I'm going to accomplish these things on these projects. There's a lot that can really go into it, and so that kind of brings me to like this beginner mindset that people should have. So maybe you have a lot of debt. Maybe you're older. Um, any of the reasons that you gave, maybe your mindset is just wrong.
Yeah.
What does just starting look like? From a
Mm-hmm.
personal assessment perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I like that. That's man, you got some good questions. And so when it comes to step one, as I like to call it, is be honest with yourself. Being honest with yourself looks like looking yourself in the mirror and saying, what's going on? What are you falling short on? What is your strength? What are your weaknesses? That's the first question I ask myself every time. what is my strength and what is my weaknesses? Because at the end of the day, I think I had an older advisor in the business who said, double down on what you're good at. You
Mm.
can't be good at everything, and you can't be really, in my opinion, you really can't be uh, um, an expert in everything, right? It's just we don't have enough time or capacity in this life to do so, right? And so I think first off, find your strengths and weaknesses, double down on your strengths, and your weaknesses you need to delegate it out. Meaning, are your weaknesses? Get a professional advisor, right? Because financial advisors are the ones who are living, breathing, and all this stuff. Well, I mean, we're doing everything in this business to be able to keep ourselves up to date. And so starting out with one is like I said, having a strength and weakness. But then the second one is really mapping out what is your mission? What do you really want? What's bigger than yourself? That's what I'm trying to get at. Because at the end of the day, I think you think about an idea that's something that's bigger than yourself that you may not be able to see it right now, but you think you can achieve it, right? That's what you need to write down. That's the mission, right? My mission is very clear. I want to be able to work with more black professionals. I want to see, at this point, it's not about getting people or getting our community to be financially literate. I think in this day and age, we kind of are there. It's about being intelligent, right? So that's my mission. And I stand by that because there's days when I wake up, I don't feel like getting up, especially when life does its thing. Or there's days where I may feel like I want to be a little lazy, right? And so I have to remember, wait, what is bigger than yourself tomorrow? Go chase that.
Mm.
And then, map out some goals, right? What is your goal? Because all that I want you to do, once you have done that, go meet with an advisor. An advisor is there to help build a plan for you. And if they're not building a plan, go get another opinion, right? Because you need to see this on paper to make it really happen. And so, having those is a good way to start, right? But then you still got to follow through, right? None of this, hey, I'm going to be with the advisor when the money's right. Mm-mm. That just don't work like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I got. You said something that was really key, and I can you elaborate on it some more? You mentioned, now, our community.
Mm-hmm.
It's not more so financial literacy, but more so being intelligent. Can you kind of
Mm-hmm.
elaborate on what you meant by that?
Yeah, yeah. Man, I mean, the honest truth on that one. So I used to early on say I wanted to make our community more financially literate.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Someone called me out in my meeting. It was an individual, older gentleman, and he was, in his retirement. He said, "Jafar," he goes, "You're not making people financially literate." He goes, "If you where you're at in your stage, especially being an advisor, is that you're trying to make people more financially intelligent." So that
Mm.
really was eye opening from a stance because I was humbled in the sense of wait, but I think you need to shift your focus towards people who want to be able to make decisions, right? And making decisions is not easy, right? If you're by yourself. And the problem that I have I don't even have my own finances, but I have someone who overlook my finances. Because the truth of the matter of the fact is that all of us are emotional, right? So I need my
Mm-hmm.
clients to be emotionally intelligent, and by doing so, they have to be, cooperative with me as well, right? Being able to trust, my thought process, my education, right? Being able my certification to be able to say, hey, this is the truth behind all of this, right? And so, really sharpening up on financial intelligence because I mean, we're looking at 2025, and I mean, you've seen how the market has been doing, right?
Yes.
Everyone's freaking out, freaking little, right?
Yes.
And so just being able to say, hey, these might be the best times to be able to actually double down into the market because this is actually a Black Friday, in my opinion. It's a discount.
Right. Yeah. Being able to, man, see, I'm learning something. That's good. I guess you're right. We want to be financially intelligent. I think that's been probably the biggest challenge for me. So when I got this new job, I'm seeing all these things. I got to make all these decisions. I got to elect for my benefits. I got to get ready for taxes. It's just like an information overload. And then they're
Yes.
like, you got to
Mhm.
do it by this date. And I'm like, wait, I don't know what none of this means. I'm talking to my parents about it. They're helping me figure it out, but I also got to go research based off what they telling me. So then I'm just like I'm tumbling. I'm tumbling. I'm
Yeah.
spiraling. I'm going on Google, ChatGPT,
Right.
Investopedia, reading all these articles, just to make a decision. And I think it was a little frustrating because I feel like most things in life, up until a certain point, you can make a decision pretty quick. What do I want to eat? Figure that out.
Yeah.
What do I want to do today? Figure that out. Who do I want to hang out with? Figure that out. I need to buy a car. Ah, man, that might take you like a couple months. You know, I want to buy a
Right.
house. Man, that might take you like a year to
It
figure out
did.
where, how to finance it. And man, I'm like, back to this job thing, I'm trying to make these decisions quick because I'm so used to being able to make them quickly. But even after reading for like a couple of weeks, I'm still like, man, I have no idea what to do. Um, and long story short, eventually, probably like after like a month and a half, I was actually able to make, I would say, a somewhat educated decision. I still felt unsure, but I
Mhm.
was like, well, I know at least this. And so maybe it's just better to get a start than to know exactly what's going on.
Mhm.
And so I think that speaks to like the point of research. How important would you say it is for people who are trying to become financially intelligent to do their own research?
Mhm. So important. I mean, if you were to college, they emphasize that, at least at Texas A&M, research. And so, but you got to be careful what you research, right? Because you can't
Mm,
be going on these websites, and I can make a website and just give you complete falseness, and you read it and take it as the truth.
true.
So, you really got to know. And so that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's certain things that you have to go to a professional, right?
Mm,
I'm the sibling or the gentleman, the guy in the family where if I'm sick, I'll look it up on Google and it'll say I have cancer, right? And I'll run with it. Right. And then every time I go to the doctor, they look at me like I'm crazy because they're like, "Jabari, you can't do that." So the same concept in finance space. Do your
mm,
research, look up the credentials behind it, of course, who's saying it. But then also, again, that's where you have to meet with the professional because I think two things that you had said I want to touch on was one, you're spending a whole lot of time researching, which is good. I want you to research, right? But I want you to also be able to make a decision in a good amount of time. I mean, in a
mm,
decent amount of time.
right.
Because someone like you don't have time, especially if you're a doctor, some of my engineers, some of my project managers, right, nurses. You guys need to be focusing on how can I, sharpen up my skills so that I can grow capital and be able to get a promotion, right? That's where
Mm,
you should be spending your time, and that's what I'm saying. Delegate your time well because there's some things that you just cannot be an expert at, right?
mm,
Hire your weaknesses on that, right? Because that allows you to grow your capital. But then,
mm.
like you had said,
Yeah.
and so I do think research is great completely. I think it's good, but it also can be a factor of just making you a little bit more weaker in some sense because then you're taking a year or two to make a decision that should be made within 20 days.
Mm. Yeah, man, that opens a whole new perspective, just kind of seeing where that value of that financial
Mhm.
advisor, and being able to make that decision. I think that's a great point. It's just time. I realize one thing is it's either time or money. Which one do
Completely.
you which one do you want to, I guess, necessarily, sacrifice? And sometimes um, it's better to go ahead and spend that money versus taking all that time. And you a great point on like the credibility. Um, I think that's a good thing for people striving to be financially intelligent to think about. Because I'm gonna be honest. I only went to Investopedia, but I mean, there's really nothing stopping me from going to another website because I had not thought about, is this
Completely.
credible necessarily or not? And so that's going to put some caution. The next time, I might do some research or look into some things as far as, how credible it may be. So I think that's a
Yes. That's
very good
good.
point. So that leads us into our quickfire segment. So, for the viewers, this is a new segment, and I feel like this will bring some excitement, mid episode. And as I mentioned, it's called Quickfire Segment, and I'll ask Javar 3 questions, and he has to answer each one within 60 seconds or less. You ready?
We'll try.
Let's let's do it. So, what is one money myth you wish people would drop?
Ooh, you got me on that one. I think the whole idea that, hey, if you put in $100 every month for the next 40 years, you'll be rich by the time you retire.
Yeah.
That is garbage. And I'll be real with you, that is complete garbage because there's a whole lot of factors that's being, misled in that situation. And what I mean by that is an individual who's going to invest into the market, first off, you got to know what you're doing. Like, why are you doing it? Right? Are you trying to preserve cash or capital? Right? Are you trying to look for growth and income? What are you looking to do? What's your intentions? Because that's going to help you decide on which funds, target funds especially, to be able to really, hope for a good outcome.
Mm.
And also, it's not guaranteed. Everyone is saying, get rich because it's guaranteed. If that's the case, run away because that's a scheme, right?
Mm.
Um, but then also, you can't be too soft. $100, just having a set amount of dollars each month. I mean, yes, that's a good start. But if you don't know what you're doing, first things first is just save it into a high yield savings. Making sure that hey, you're getting some interest while you're trying to make a decision, right? But then be able to then have those funds be allocated towards the market with a professional who's going to help you map out that,
Mm.
right? And
Thank you.
rebalance it,
Mm.
right? Rebalancing every quarter. I mean, stocks, the market is just like technology. It's always changing,
Mm.
always changing. And so every quarter, you need someone to look at your portfolio and say, hey, what's going on? We may have to reallocate this elsewhere. Okay.
Right. Bubble busted on that one because I see a lot of posts. I see a lot of posts about that. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 2.
Okay.
Does income limit wealth building?
Absolutely. I
Mm.
think that's the truth. It really is a hard truth behind that. Someone who's making $40,000, it's going to be, they only have the capacity to be able to do so much with that. And so that's why I say work smart, also work hard, right? And, because when it comes to making $40,000, that's not, I mean, 40,000 gets you nowhere in today's market. I mean, you see how McDonald's has gotten expensive. The dollar menu is now, I call it the inflation menu because, the chicken now costs like what, 2.15, 3, and inflation rate is, going up 2.25% each year. And so, I think really when it comes to that, money is very limited. And so if you don't have enough time, right, to be able to sharpen yourself up, I mean, and you're trying to manage your money at 40,000, there's only so much you can get done with that. I don't, I hate to say that to you.
That's the truth. I
Yeah.
mean, man, I appreciate you for telling the truth. I think other people
Yeah.
will as well. And that should get people's wheels turning on, how can I build other streams of income,
Exactly.
and change that mindset. At the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like your mind, no, I know your mind can
Yeah.
take you as far as you want to go, as far as
Absolutely.
you want to go. So that's a real answer for people who maybe are like, well, it don't matter how much I make. No, yes, it does, and you need to do what you can to get that up. Um,
Exactly.
that was good. Okay,
Yeah.
question number 3: what's your go-to advice for someone who feels stuck financially?
I think you need to consume yourself,
Mm.
right, with intelligence. And so early on, that you had asked and you said, what was the early mindset that you had in the business? And really for me, I call myself, if I was going to be on Instagram, I was saving reels for purpose for 2024, 2025, right? What are some goals? I had to really, if I was going to be on social media, set yourself up for success. Follow accounts that are truth telling,
Mm.
right? Not just from an emotional standpoint, but also just from an educational logic standpoint, right? So, get your mind right on that one. Surround yourself with people who are doing much better than you. I think if you're hanging out with folks that are doing just as well as you are or below, I mean, it's really not growing anyone, right? You're just going to be, just a space, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think also, where it comes from is, having that meditation thought process, prayer moment, whatever you want to call it, to be able to say, hey, what is the source that I need to be connected to? For me, I'm a believer, and so I had to start off with God. I said, God, will you please make my agenda your agenda? So I want to make a kingdom impact. I want to be able to have heaven come down onto earth so that I can be able to make an impact in people's lives. Okay, and so it's a good, check yourself moment. I think if you want to, if you feel like you're catching yourself to be stuck, check yourself. I think being able to look back and say, hey, what have I done so far? And
Yeah.
whatever I have not done so far, let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's good advice. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Man, this is good stuff. I'm learning some things for sure. I hope the audience is as well. All right, so quick fire segment is done. Hopefully, y'all
Ooh,
enjoyed that.
yeah,
Those are
that
some,
was tough. You got me on the
yes,
spotlight.
some tough questions, huh?
Yeah.
Um, but okay, so now that we kind of I think I'm understanding the mindset of what you're saying of like making sure you're taking the time to research, but also making sure you're getting the help you need, looking
Mhm.
at yourself, reflecting, right, being real with yourself, understanding what you have, what you don't have, and how you can work to a better position. And so I think one of the biggest things, and you mentioned it earlier, is debt. Um,
Mhm.
where do you start for tackling debt? In a general sense.
Mm. This is probably my favorite part in the business to help someone to achieve. Because I know what debt feels like. And I think you know what debt feels. Debt feels like slavery,
Mm,
right? It feels like slavery because you are doing a whole lot of getting nowhere, right? And so when it comes to that, when it comes to debt, I think the first thing you got to look into is first pick the highest interest rate, right? If you have all these credit cards, right? If you got 12 different credit cards, pick the highest interest rate. I don't care what the balance is. If it's the lowest balance, it doesn't matter. Highest interest rate first, right? Look at that and say, what's a good number that I could be aggressive on? Enough to be uncomfortable, or more than enough to say I'm comfortable, but be able to say, hey, this is going to be a push for me, but I want to knock it out as quickly as possible. While at the same time, with the other debts that you do have, pay the minimum. And the strategy behind that is when you pay the highest interest rate with the most aggressive number while paying the minimum on the other credit cards or any debt in general, right? You're gonna create that snowball effect that you're looking for, right? And so you'll be able to knock out certain debts within hopefully 2 years. If you're looking into the time horizon, I think you should be, if you are in high debt, you should be looking into knocking that off really in a year, but if not, no more than 2 years. Because the problem that you're going to run into that I have with my clients is that being in so much debt really does hold you back into participating in the market. Because again, like I had told you, time is everything. Having your money invested into the market is important. And so if you don't have money in the market right now, especially, or at least a few weeks ago, right, you probably missed out one of the best times to invest your dollars this year,
mm.
right? So the impact of time really does matter. And so debt, I would start with that strategy is go for the snowball effect.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. You know,
Mhm.
from what I have read, I've seen that debt is the biggest wealth
Mhm.
blocker.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's the biggest wealth blocker by far, and a lot of people need advice on debt. Not to, not to segue too deep into it, but I saw something on I think it's on Instagram yesterday. This girl paid off $56,000 of credit card debt. And everybody in the comments was like, "How did you do that?" Like
Yeah.
what? That's a lot. And she just was talking about, she was a foster kid, grew up in the system, nobody
Mhm.
to really give advice. And it's awesome that she paid it off. But
Mhm.
what if she just didn't have to in the first place?
Mhm. Yeah,
And
exactly.
and being able to really shift your mindset and perspective on that. Definitely makes you, I think once you get into the topic of debt, it definitely makes you double think certain decisions you make. For like a lot of us, I remember learning in high school, man, the middle class loan trap. It was one of the
Mhm.
worst things for our community.
Mhm.
Where we needed money, we go get the loan, but we can't pay the loan back. So we get another one and another one and another one, and then years later we die in debt, and then it passes on to our kids, or it
Mhm.
eats up into our estate, where everything that we had as collateral is gone. Um, and so that's what kind of led the mindset for that question. So I would definitely be taking that advice.
Absolutely. Which I want to add on to that. It doesn't matter how much money you make. I think that was a
Mm.
big eye opener for me because a lot of my book of business or the practice that I have with my clients is that I work with a lot of engineers and I work with a lot of medical professionals. And funny enough, the medical professionals make the most money, more money than my engineers. But my engineers are my best clients, have the most assets than some of these medical professionals. And I mean doctors. Right. And so it also, just because don't get too happy and fat with it because you think, oh, now that I've got out of medical school, I can go live it up. Right. I think live it up as much as you can for sure. I enjoy nice things, fun things, and I plan for that. But also just realize that be careful, right? Because if not, you get yourself in debt. My doctors are typically the most in debt outside of the medical related.
Yeah, making $100,000 a year doesn't mean anything if you spend 100.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
completely.
that's a good thing to think about, which just kind of leads into when you make less, still it still counts. I think that's one of the things I was talking about this past week on my page. It still counts. Like,
Mhm.
even though you can't build as much wealth making $40,000, it still counts when you set yourself up for success. It still
Mhm.
counts when you try to budget. It still counts when you try to put money in the market. It still counts at the end of the day, because as long as you continue to work on yourself in due time, those skills you've developed might help you make double and triple, right? A lot
Absolutely.
of millionaires come from very humble beginnings, or
Yeah,
careers where they didn't make a lot of money. And it's all because they saw the value when it didn't feel like anything was changing.
completely. I love that. That's good. That's good talk.
Yeah. And so another question, because this is something that I've been thinking about, is saving and investing. So you're tackling that debt. How do you balance, right? And how does one actually save? Another thing I talked about this week, and I'm a victim of it myself, is I got that emergency fund. Then I run out of money in that checking account, and I pull from the emergency fund, and all of a sudden, nothing saved anymore. So what does that balance look like, and how should we like shift our mindsets on that?
Yeah, that's good. So, it's funny, because I came to the realization that if Microsoft or any big company needs a CFO, right, we need a CFO as well, right? Income,
Mm,
anything that's driving income and bringing in, a good source of it for you, you need to have a CFO, which that's where the advisor come in. But let's say you're starting out, right? First things first is that budget. It all stems from that budget because that budget is going to tell me what's going on. It's funny. The numbers. That's what I enjoy about the numbers because the numbers do tell me a story, right? Because I've had individuals tell me they're great at saving, but when I look at the monthly budget, gosh, Lee, you're like, okay, I get fun is needed, but this is too much fun. And so
yes.
when I look off into my finances, the first thing, not even just my clients' finances, I look off into their fixed expenses. Fixed expenses like your bills, your rent, your mortgage, stuff that you really can't negotiate, right? So that's fixed expenses. But I also like to incorporate, hey, I know from a habit or habitual standpoint, I really do, probably spend about $200 a month, $300 a month for just going out to eat, right? Another one could be, I may enjoy going to the Mavericks, and go seeing them play, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
know I love seeing basketball, and so I got to pay and put myself out. So plan for your discretionary, incorporate that into your fixed expenses, and
Mm-hmm.
that's your fixed number. Don't mess with it, no. And then when it comes to your savings, I think you had said a good point. I think you're a lot more sharp in this because I'm sure you got it, but a high yield savings
Mm-hmm.
account, at least in today's day and age right now, it makes sense to have one. And high yield savings is a little bit different than just a regular savings, right? Because you also are getting some APY with it, some
Right.
interest. And so find a good company that you can work with to be able to set your dollars set aside into that. Set it up where you're saving consistently each month. Don't do a one-time draft. If you know on your budget you say you're gonna save 300 a month, and you get paid twice a month. Well, go ahead and put 150 every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right? Pay yourself first. People didn't understand what that meant. I didn't, at least. What does that mean? Pay yourself first. Pay yourself doesn't look like going shopping, right? That's already in the budget. Paying yourself first means, hey, I'm going to pay. I got to pay myself first, because at the end of the day, the mindset is if your company didn't pay you on the first, right, or on the 15th, you're coming for them. And so that's the same mindset you should be doing. Is, hey, I need to go ahead and put money towards the future, and that's paying myself first. So doing that into a high yield savings is a good starting point. And I would say save about 6 months of that. 6 months of fixed expenses.
So how, just a follow-up question, how bad is it to kind of eat into those paying what you pay yourself on a consistent basis? How bad is that?
Say that one more time.
How bad is it to use funds that you're supposed to be saving or using the funds that, you paid yourself first on a consistent basis?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you won't get anywhere, right? On a consistent basis now, having 6 months of fixed expenses saved up, which is your emergency cash, right? Your emergency savings. That's for reasons that just pop up, things that really does and hold you back. And so that's your soldier dollar to be able to make sure that it's playing a defensive role in life for you. And so if you're trying to save each month and you're consistently spending it each month, you're really wasting your time, right?
Right.
That's just the truth of the matter. And so how bad is it? Very bad. It doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, I finally fixed it. What I did was I ended up, and I'll just share my strategy. I ended up just making another account, didn't get a debit card ordered, and it's blind. I don't see where it's going. All I know is it's gonna get money put in there every time I get paid, and
There you go.
my hands is off. But before
That's it.
then, it'd be right there with all my other money. So I'm like, ooh, okay. I can use this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Well, good for you. That's called being self-aware. Everyone has different, and that's what I'm saying. I have to meet people where they are, because some people are good at that, and some people are bad at that. And so the truth is, you're your best enemy, or worst enemy, excuse me, right? And so really, your weakness on that. You know that if I see that number in that checking, I want to spend it. But you automatically say, hey, let's go ahead and set up some boundaries. And that's what I have to do. I'm just as bad as, just because I'm in finance doesn't make me shielded, right? Because I can be emotional with my finances. And so I make sure that I do have some boundaries, some provisions, and make sure that stuff is getting taken care of.
right, okay, and
That's
so
good.
I'm sorry.
No, I said that's great.
Oh, so just one more question before we open it up for audience Q&A. I see we got a few questions in the chat already, but you mentioned the role of a financial advisor, and so given everything that we've discussed, you know, just I guess what does the financial advisor do, and when should someone consider one?
Mm. Financial advisor can do a whole lot of things, and at least they should be able to. But a financial advisor, first things first, they're going to help you map out your life, right? And so, just like how you plan for a wedding, we're going to plan for your life, right? Every little detail matters, especially when you have a family. And so, a financial advisor is supposed to help you map out on paper, how can we achieve certain goals, whether that's debt, whether that's making sure that we save or invest, or, if you're a business owner, how do we be more efficient with taxes, right? In general, really, right? And so the financial advisor is going to help you look towards the future. They're going to help you map it out correctly, of course, and they're going to hold you accountable to that. And hold you accountable is not saying, "Hey, Malachi, how you doing on this Sunday? Have you saved?" No, 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 no. No, they're going to make sure that you set up certain accounts and you've allocated your money towards that already.
Okay.
Right. So when a financial advisor is going to make sure that you move to action. If he's not helping you move to action, y'all just chit chatting. He's not a financial advisor, right? He or she, excuse me. And so, right, they're just professional talkers, right? And so when individuals, my prospects, even my clients know there's a process. Typically I meet with the individual where it takes me about 3 to 4 weeks to meet with them before I meet them or initiate to engage with them as a client, right?
Okay.
And then we meet every, at least 2 times a year, right? In the summer and winter. And so, that's really what a financial advisor does. What was the second part? I missed that.
When should one consider a financial advisor?
Yes. You know, my whole, I think when you should meet with an advisor is when you have a vision, right? When you have a vision, a mission, right? A purpose. Go meet with a financial advisor. Let them tell you that, hey, it may not be the best time to work together. If they're honest, they would do that. I've had some prospects where, meeting with me was great because we help initiate all the goals and purposes because sometimes people don't have goals, right? And that's where I'm supposed to help them kind of unpack, get on the right track for success so that when, money starts to become more relevant as far as a priority go for them, it takes some time, of course, then they're able to say, hey, actually, tomorrow I think I want to shift towards this, right? And so I think if you have a mission, a vision, I think that's when you should go meet with an advisor. So that way you can at least have a conversation with one so that if the timing is not right and when it does become right, then you have a good point of contact who already know your circumstance.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, honestly, and I kind of realize that myself. There's a good bit of prep work you got to do. You need to be able to articulate where you want to go, right? They're not there to tell you where to go. You're there to help me get there. Right?
Exactly.
But okay, thank you so much. Let's open it up to some of the questions. So I see we got a couple of questions. So someone asked, Nathaniel Stone asked, what are some good articles to read up on for beginners?
I love that. What I read myself personally is Wall Street and Forbes, right? Wall Street helps me really keep up with the current events, right? Help me make sure what's really going on. I don't know if you've ever been to New York, Malachi, but I really did learn most recently when I go, I see why a lot of things happen because the market really does move up there.
Yeah.
And so Wall Street is a good journal, but they're typically very, what do you call it, credible. And as well as Forbes. I think Forbes is going to always come out with, it's a good consumer article because it helps you read it from a stance that you can understand it, right? There's certain jargons that we use that, we may not, convert well, but Forbes is one of those good articles where you can say, oh, as a consumer, I know what they're saying. That's what I mean. They'll even break it down for you. So I love using them, and I read them every morning, actually.
Okay. You know what? That's good. I've been checking out Investopedia, but I haven't thought about Wall Street or Forbes, so I'll start checking those out. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great one too, though. Investopedia. I think you're definitely on the right track.
So our next question is from Sydney, and he asked, "How do you protect your money when investing in 401k, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, high yielding savings accounts, etc.?"
That's good. I love that. That's a good question. That's a really good question. And so protecting your money, first off, which I didn't get to say this in my answer earlier, but this is not oftentimes talked about, but I do want to be real with this, is that, when it comes to protecting your income, you've got to protect your income. You've got to protect it. Long-term disability, if you haven't heard about it. First things first, protect your income because if you were to break a leg, right, and you're not able, or I'm not saying break a leg, get into a car accident, I'll give you a real life scenario. I got hit by a drunk driver and I was out for a couple of months, and so that really did stop me from making income. So protect your money with the long-term disability. But then from the market in itself, you need to find an asset that sits outside the market that's going to allow you to grow your capital. And so, one of the weights that I know pretty well on is the whole permanent life insurance, whole life insurance, right? It's a life insurance up front, but then on the back end, it really does allow you to build cash value because what's going on with that, hopefully, that every insurance company is transparent on, Because at that company, that insurance company is taking your premiums and they're actually investing your premiums into the market that's private. So you and I don't have access to because we're too poor, right? You have to be on a whole nother level, right? Institutional level. And they'll come back into the form of dividends that then pay out into cash for you, be able to multiply your cash value. And so, I always let my individuals know have a good amount of money in the market to be aggressive, but then also have some cash outside of your emergency savings, right? Have some emergency cash for something that's a little bit long term. And long term meaning you need to take your income. If it's $100,000, you need $400,000 of non-market asset to be able to then be able to say, hey, that's my recession-proof asset.
That's good. It's a good question. And so someone else asked, the Master Barber asks, what are some of the top performers in your portfolio? Not sure if we can.
To be real with you, I can't disclose that
Okay.
because that can mislead everyone. But looking back, I think the best way to answer this is that if you look back in the last 10 years, you'll see that a lot of your tech companies, right, big cap companies have really been doing well. Um, and then sometimes it's also a little bit of small cap, right, the different asset allocation. But that's a good question that you got to just have a conversation with me on because, that's a good one.
Absolutely. A lot of that comes with. That's why you go forward and initiate, a meeting with an advisor to learn those types of things and do some additional research.
And I don't want to mislead nobody on this because if I say it, then they're going to be, oh my gosh, Mark said it. And then here we are in trouble.
Right. Absolutely. And we don't want that at all. Thank you for being transparent about that. And so we have another question that is asking, how do you not make money your master? And I'm guessing this probably has to do with, like you were saying, like debt, being feels like a form of slavery in a sense, and how do you just not, I guess, let focusing on money consume everything else that you're doing?
That's good. I like that. So tithing, if you're a believer, tithing is huge, 10%, right? And even some of my non-believer clients, right, they tithe more. It's like they could be even better Christians, right? Because they tithe, 15%. But I would say not let money be your master is, a good way to do a check and balance of that is, give your money away to a charity, right? Something that's bigger than yourself. That's a food pantry, right? A local church, right? That really does kind of help position you to say, hey, this money is not made. It's not for me necessarily, right? Because at the end of the day, when I die, not all of it can go with me, right? Or not all of it at all. Excuse me. And so, as far as that go, not let it be a master for you. I think that's another thing is what helps is having a plan because I think if you're not having a plan, you're just kind of going through the motions of life, the rat race, right? You really are kind of stressing yourself out unnecessarily, and I think that really is a preventive, health measure that we can take off on ourselves is being able to make sure, hey, I've already planned, I'm already doing what I have to do, and that's it, and then everything else is in control, right? And so, mastering your money, is all about creating a plan and to being able to give back, to others.
Okay. I can definitely see that. Yeah. Can't always be about you,
Yeah.
Money is definitely a tool. It's something that I realize it's something that it answers all things, right? As
Yeah.
we know. So it helps you to be able to move freely, and support others when necessary. But it is not the end all be all by far. And so there's I agree. Just make sure that there's a good balance in terms of your mindset. I think give it to a charity and tithing as a ministry. I personally tithe myself, so
It's hard.
yeah, you always gotta make sure
Yeah.
you put the Most High first. But okay, so I think that's all the questions that we have. Thank y'all for asking questions. Those were good questions. They helped me out for sure. But all right, so we are at the closing segment, and each episode we do 5 WealthWise tips, right? And so, um, Javar, are you ready?
This might be harder than the fire questions, but yeah, I think I'm ready.
Okay, so just depending on what you think, just 5 pieces of advice that you want the viewers to walk away with today, and just to really think about. Um, Go for it.
5 tips. So the first things first, which I sound like a broken record, but know your why, know your
Mm-hmm.
mission, right? Know your vision, because that's a good place to start. It's actually really the fun part to start with because everything else is hard work, right? So knowing more about your outlook for these things as far as finances go. The second thing is budget. Look at that budget. Look at what you're spending and be real with yourself. In fact, I would set a reminder every Sunday. Me personally, why Sunday? Because Sunday I'm getting myself ready for the week, and so I'm typically already starting to get into that winning mentality mode, right? And so look at your budget, set your budget, right? And honestly multiply those numbers by 12 so you can see, hey, am I really going to spend that much money on dinner on a yearly basis,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the third way is, the truth behind it, and especially in our community, I want to just be real on this one, is get yourself a life insurance policy, right? And I'm talking about just get a basic term policy, right? And really look off into making sure that you are protecting your income times 10, right? If you have children, at least $100,000 per child because a public institution, or if they want to be able to create a business, you at least help them jumpstart it, right? So get life insurance because I want to see less of our folks, especially having to do GoFundMe's. I mean, it's really cheap. Life insurance is cheap, right? And then, what is it? Protect your income, right? So if you are someone like you and I, Malachi, like you and I, we have to work. Everyone has to work, but you and I have to work, or bills don't get paid, right? And so if you're making $100,000, typically your company, go look at your company's group portal package. They'll tell you, hey, if you were to be out for 3+ months, how much are we willing to pay you? They're going to probably tell you it's going to be 50 to 60% of that. You and I both know $100,000 in today's dollars really is not that much, right? So making 6 figures is getting a whole lot more expensive, really. And so protecting your income is so important because you want to make sure that, if you're not able to work, even on, unfortunate circumstances, you can at least be at 90% capacity to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the last way I would say about this or tip is when it comes to investing your dollars, right, or wanting to get more into the market, I would educate yourself. Educate yourself on asset allocation. What is asset allocation? Right? Look up asset allocation. Looking up asset allocation, you'll see it being broken down into 9 segments, right? And so that's what you want to do because a good place to start from there is once you know what asset allocation is, you can then ask yourself, hey, how do I want to participate in the market? Do I want to just grow my capital? Do I want to preserve what I got going on with myself? What's my time horizon, right? And then go take that to a financial advisor because what you're going to do is you're going to create a now relationship with an advisor where he knows, hey, this is what this person wants. I want to be able to get them there, and here's how we're going to do it. Right, and they'll be able to help you map it out of at least projections between where you're at now until maybe 120 years old, so you can really have no excuse, right, to
Right.
know when things are happening.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
those are my 5 tips. There's a whole lot more I wish I can give you, but I think that really does call to alter of just meet with a financial advisor, right? And they typically unless they're a fee, based advisor, most of them don't charge unless, there's transaction on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, for being a guest, for being open. Now, when I reached out, he was very open to talking to
Yeah.
me, and we talked before this meeting. And so, just working with you, and talking to you has been great. I've absolutely learned a lot, and I hope the viewers did as well. And if for the viewers, if any of this spoke to you, if you know somebody who's working on getting started on their financial journey, send it to them. And we're building a community here, one honest conversation at a time. I'll have the full episode for replay on YouTube later. Follow the Instagram. And just want to give one more big thank you to Mr. Ducky. Do you have anything else to say before we get off?
Also, say, Micah, I love what you're doing here. This is what I like to see. I like to see, especially two brothers getting together, and let's really be honest, right? And so, Micah, I just want to say thank you for just giving me the opportunity and the platform to be able to just, share what I've learned. There's things that I failed at that most of my clients don't know, right? They just see the good, but this is the truth behind it. It took some error, right, to get to where I'm at. And so, I love what you're doing. Again, your mission and vision is very clear to me. You haven't even told me, right? But it's been able to really pave forward for, the generation before us. And so I want to make sure that if there's anything that you notice or, need a connection, I would love to be able to help you out on that because that's something that I believe is making sure that you help each other out.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Give it up for another good episode.
My man. I love that.
Yes, sir. Well, with that being said, everyone, it is 1:00. I don't want to take too much more of everyone else's time. So I'm going to say my closing statement of master your money and secure your future. Until next time, y'all have a great day.